this discussion. Um, yes, yes. I'm just wanting to try to um, have us discuss what have we learned, guys, from the entire entanglement discussion, the red table with Will and Jada. What is it that we have learned from the couple? Because I do think there's a lot to tell and there's a lot to learn as a generation. Just tune in. I'll be waiting for you. I set 19 hours, which is 7 o'clock. And I'm just waiting for you to come through. In the meantime, I'll try to hook that video up to learn from, or rather, have a proper discussion that is a bit lengthy with regard to maybe just just learning from how we are doing relationships nowadays. I don't think a lot of people or a lot of us are under the proper understanding that relationships has changed. How we relate today, it's a bit something. It's a bit of um, an improvement or new challenges, and hence a lot. If you go to Black Twitter, there's a lot of backlash with regards to the interview Will has had with his wife and the mother of his children, and there's a lot to take from this. There's a lot to take from this the discussion they had, and I do think that Will is quite a very courageous and strong man. To some extent, a lot wouldn't even understand um, what he was about or what their relationship has been about. And as I say to you, we should try to rather discuss. And to some extent, when I look around, I have seen how much of a judgmental world we are. And from my research on romantic relationship, I have learned that how we relate has changed. The manner in which we are relating as people has changed dramatically so, and marriage in its own stand as well has changed. And as a person, you ask yourself, how do I position myself in these social changes, and to what extent can I be who I want to be, and at the same time be able to operate as a sane person in the society? And I must say that a lot of African men are struggling to understand the concept or what Will has went through and what he has discussed with Jada, and how he was very content and very focused in that discussion, and just the pain he was going through, being able to sit through the pain and talk to Jada and understand what went down. There's a lot of things that I'm going to discuss with you today, and I want you to just pop in and whatever question you might have in terms of maybe your views of the whole happening or how their relationship is going about. If you have different views, you can always ask me. But listen, guys, I do think that as a society or as a generation, there's a lot of changes around marriage and relationship and how we relate with one another. And one of the beautiful things that Esther Perel has said in her book, Rethinking Infidelity, I think it's amongst here, The State of Affairs. One of the books that, The State of Affairs, The State of Affairs by Esther Perel, Rethinking Infidelity. What is cheating? How does one cheat? When does one stray from a relationship, who determines whether something is cheating or not? And who decides the game, or rather, who decides that whatever, anything that somebody is doing is straying? That is something that we have to ask ourselves. And I have learned from this book that, you know what, infidelity is such a complicated concept that a lot of us do not know how to disentangle, don't even know how to live with it. And we take a lot of vows. If you go to marriages, you will hear people saying, through better or worse, through thick and thin. But they hardly stick around when things are maybe thick or when things are very distasteful. Then you ask yourself whether they really meant the vows they said before the congregation. Myself, I know I could feel just listening to Will's interview, I could feel his pain and I could relate with him quite well in that space to say, yo, this must have been such an experience for you and for the family as well, because as a man, you're not only responsible for your wife, whom you're married to, you're responsible for the kids as well and for the betterment of the family. So being able to man up the whole situation with Agus and Jada, being able to man it up and being able to come to the red table and discuss with the person who has committed, um, maybe who has committed what you or what this world that we're living in today, who has committed a felony or who has cheated on you. Being able to sit through the interview, I think that's the most courageous thing to do. Nowadays, men struggle to do that. They find it very hard to love a person through everything. I think we should be able to understand what love is about if we wanting to pursue or to assume, or rather promise people that we will love them or we love them. Love is a very complicated concept because I think thus far, by far as well, couples like Will and Smith are the ones that has always, or rather, um, has portrayed um, what unconditional love is. I applaud them for being able to go through thick and thin, because a lot of couples in marriages today, as we are faced with retrenchment of COVID-19 and as we face with quite a lot of things, they're struggling to be with one another on the basis of maybe material needs or on the basis of differences they might have with one another. You find it a bit hard to love a person through different things. And Will has portrayed quite a lot of courage with regard to loving Jada, in spite of having had this experience with her in August. I think, you know what, I do have a lot of discussions with guys, and their perception on this matter, it's quite hectic. And they say, you know what, Will is in America and we are in Africa. We can't operate that way. When you do that as a woman, in spite of the commitment and the children we have, even if the riches that we might lose if we break up or divorce, I'm very prepared to leave you. And I'm like, that's really preposterous, because you said that before the congregation, and you said that you will be through this, will be with this person through thick and thin. Why is it that now things are changing? Because things are, things are a bit hard relationally with that person. I find it a bit of, it's a bit of an ignorant thing that we do as a generation around romantic relationship. And one of them said to me that, I think, Reggie, we need to revise the institution of marriage, because it seems to me that it's one of the most destructive institution ever, because you could work for everything and somebody just you get married to someone, and that somebody you eventually get to break up with them, and maybe because of, I don't know, infidelity or something. This is something you need to understand. This is something that you need to understand. Behind the fence of two couples lies the third. Behind the fence, ka morago ga terata ya batho ba babedi, go na le ntho e nngwe, go na le motho o mongwe wa boraro. Right? Behind the fence of two people lies the third. What is the third? It might be the situation that disconnects you from one another. It might be an experience that actually get you guys disconnected from one another. They had marital problems, and to hear Jada saying, listen, I haven't been happy for quite some time, and we have been fighting for so long, and I just wanted to be happy. And my relationship with others was one that actually brought that, was one that brought back that experience which I was yearning for. That's something to think about, because most of the time when people get out in a relationship or when they decide to stray, it's particularly not about you. It's about something they have lost in a relationship, and they are attempting to get it from that other person. It might be loss. You might lose a child together, which eventually leads to disconnection. It might be just children growing up, or one partner being busy more than the other, which actually brings a lot of space in between you guys, because the person whom they stray with is not necessarily related to you, but it's somebody who brings that of which the other is seeking. So if you look around and if you actually assess how Jada and Will operated throughout, it has shown vehemently that there is something that actually was going on that propelled the other to do something different. And it's a bit difficult for people in the society to understand those complexes, because we think that one shouldn't stray and one should only sleep with their partner for the rest of their life. Well, wake up and smell the coffee, because quite a lot of people do think that the idea of being married to one person for the rest of your life is totally ridiculous. And a lot are trying, or rather attempting, to review that. And that's something that actually it's important to think about. Why? Because it seems as though that with the information age and the technological innovations and new ways of doing things in the society, how we relate has changed. Although there's a lot of entrepreneurs who hardly talk about romantic relationship, by the way, nobody talks about the future of romantic relationship. Everybody talks about the future of food, the future of doing business, the future of education, and the future of blah, blah, blah. Nobody ever talks about the future of romantic relationship, which it's a bit weird. I do think it's a bit weird, because no man goes to work just to earn money and just pile it in their accounts. They go to work because they want to take care of their significant other and build a family with somebody. It's an ignorant thing that we have managed successfully so as a society to propel it to be something that we should not pay attention to. Coming back to the current scenario with Jada and Will, it defines, or rather give us a wake-up call to say, hey, ways of doing relationship has changed. I think maybe you can marry somebody maybe per decade, and you will decide after a decade whether you still want to be with one another or not. You can marry, or you can get into an open marriage where the covenant that you have with one another is of building a family, building the kids that you have, though having relationship with other people, just to pursue or rather get the things that your heart desires. So those are new dynamics. It's a bit discomfortable for you to fathom or to understand at the moment, but it seems as though these are new dynamics because, I mean, how many romantic relationship of celebrities in South Africa has made it? How many relationship have made it in South Africa of celebrities? It's almost close to one. It's close to 205. A lot of them do get into those things, but it proposed to you levels of relating because when you met me when I have nothing and now I have something, I'm a different person when I have something. So I require a different kind of functioning. And hence you find that whenever guys get more money, they move to other people. We have the Block Coffee and Bali case in today's situations where you don't even know how to explain that. There's straying, there's a lot of things. A person's desire is one that's so difficult to control. Even themselves, who are the ones who are desiring those things, they struggle to control it because you know what, it just gives you that sense of livelihood. It gives you that sense of aliveness. I want to do this. I could be with this person and this is what could be. But then is the covenant that you have with somebody, the agreement you have with somebody that actually propels you to remembering them when you are about to choose selfish things like straying or selfish things like being in a relationship with the other person without informing the other? Or should we maybe consider having a contract that stipulate what should be done or should not be done in a relationship? Maybe it's a bit more convenient because our cell phone contract are more clearer than our relationship. A lot are in situationships. A lot are in things that they cannot define for themselves and others. A lot are in just some things that they don't even know themselves and they still call them romantic relationships. Then one is bound to ask themselves, maybe we should consider contractual relationship. Maybe we should consider something that defines how our relationship has to be. Because you know what? In today's world, we are exposed to a world of things. We are exposed to a lot of people at once. People whom you could have taken like 5 years to meet, you meet them just in a click of a post or just a request on a friend request on Facebook. Those are critical things to one's ability to manage their own desire. So now the question comes back to relationship. How should we therefore relate? Because it seems as though that an idea of an open marriage is one that one has to entertain because a one-on-one marriage ends very bitterly with a lot of tears. On the other side, an idea of a red table where couples comes and say, you know what, this is what I have been feeling and this is what I have done to our relationship. I therefore require or rather request that you forgive me is probably an idea that we should probably entertain because more especially in South Africa where we experience a lot of GBV, gender-based violence, and a lot of femicide in romantic relationship, it's quite a good thing that we can implement in an attempt to heal or rather provide a space for couples to talk. Because when I read the book Mating in Captivity by Esther Perel, when she talks about unlocking erotic intelligence, one of the things that I have found out in the book was that there is this domesticization of lust and desire where we relate in a very funny way after marrying one another. And when you are in a relationship with somebody, the things that attracted them to you, you stop taking care of them. You you start losing them that way. Let me say, in our first year of marriage, you were sleeping in lingeries, in heels, and all that. Um, After a year of marriage, you stop doing that and coming in with like a full suit or track suits and all that. That steals my desire of you away from me. And that eventually breeds, or rather disconnect me from you. But then a lot of the time women say, you should love me for who I am. I've given birth to children or your children. Therefore, I demand, or rather request, that you love that about me. You can't say that to last. It's impossible. And one of the things that I found in Will and Jada's marriage was that they've been they've been very, very busy in their life, career-wise, and with that being the case, you're bound to fall into the busyness of your career and forgetting the person that you are in a covenant with. And that creates a space for the third to pop in. And if you do think how, if you really reflect on how August came into their family, you would actually understand the dynamics that went down in that relationship. Listen, Jada, um, Jada had um, August was sick, and Jada and Smith decided to take care of him. That maternal thing in Jada was what propels her to take care of him. And with that being the case, it actually gave a sense of doing things and sharing that maternal love. Remember that their children are both grown-ups that are busy running the world. The other one is in, both of them are artists or they're busy in something. And when they had marriage, or rather marital problems, and when Agus was there, she continued taking care of him. And with that being the case, when you no longer take care of your husband and you're taking care of the other person, you're still performing things that are maternal to the other man who's not your husband. And he enjoyed those maternal care. With that being the case, it got entangled. Why? Because there's a relationship going on which is not mother to child, but something undefined. She needed somebody to just hold her, or rather, um, just heal her from whatever she was going through, or just to make her happy. And the idea of taking care of somebody who literally genuinely care about you because you're taking care of them was what opened up that space. And eventually, obviously, things get lost out of control. You maybe sleep with one another, and it's a bit too late for one to get to understand, because what she said was that she was seeking happiness, and she eventually realized that you cannot go outside, or you can't get happiness from the other person. Happiness lies within. It was a bit too late. This happened quite ages ago, but I think an understanding of the nature of relationship as time goes by, it's important, because we think that the person we were, or the person's covenant, becomes something that they withhold throughout. Whereas as we grow up, career-wise, relationally, there's new levels of ourselves. A person is in a constant moment of becoming, and you got to meet them at the levels they become. If you fail to meet them at the level they become without you. That is to say, they meet somebody else, which is the situation today. But then they wake up after making a mess of something that looked like a public emasculation of this nature. But the reality of it all, I think that it gives a bit of sense to um, couples today to say, you know what, you can have differences, one can stray, As long as you provide a space for one to come back whenever they have made a mistake, it is okay. Because that's what marriage is about. It's not to say, now because I'm married to you, should I stray, then I'm done. Remember, we all, or you took vows about thick and thin, better or worse. That's just some worse stuff that do happen, and you got to show up to that. And I think that's what I actually value about Will, to say, listen, he actually did stick up to whatever that he had promised to Jada, and he actually showed up, and he actually reminded her that, listen, remember, I told you that um, I'll love you through anything. And I found that to be, it's really powerful, I must say. It is really powerful. And to some extent, you know what, I'm a bit undone, or rather, I do not know how one could better learn from this, because a lot of men in South Africa do not understand the idea of being able to stray, or a woman straying and coming back. They just think that the women should be okay, should be on top of their game, and that's it. I think it always tangles, or rather entangle, around the issue of lobola, which we will discuss at some point as time goes by. But hey, that was just my reflection on the current issues. But then the primary thing that I want you guys to take note of is that we are relating in a way different way. Marriage is done in different way. So there's a lot of things that were done back in the days that are not applicable today. So the sooner you actually take part into understanding what is it that propels things, or what is it that you need in order for you to make your relationship successful in today's world, the sooner you realize what that is, the better. But thinking that relationship will just function the way old relationship was functioning, it's a fallacy, or rather, it's